1 second, you're in one of the biggest games of your career. The next, these are the 20 footballers who almost died. And for Lionel Messi, a football match that almost cost him everything. When Lionel Messi woke up that morning, he knew it wasn't a normal match. Because just 2 weeks earlier, Barcelona had suffered an embarrassing first-leg loss against Juventus in the Champions League. And with his teammates and fans all counting on him, Messi took this game personally. But as the match started, things didn't go according to plan. And in Messi's desperation to save his name, he attacked every ball with aggression. But in the 40th minute, this happened. This was a scary thing to see. And to make matters worse, doctors said if it landed just a few millimeters sideways, that fall would have cost him his life. Wow. All I can say is Messi's a very lucky man. To think this is just the beginning, you're in for some shocking stories, because still to come in our top 3 picks is one of the GOATs driving against traffic and an accident that almost destroyed a great football player before he could kick a ball. But before that, let's look at a guy who doesn't run from death, but death runs from him. Arguably football's most interesting character, Zlatan Ibrahimovic is what you'd call a man who believes in his abilities a little too much. For a guy who calls himself a god, surely he doesn't follow the rules. And it was during one of these rule-breaking episodes that something crazy happened. Zlatan was driving around Malmö town in his Ferrari and decided to park illegally in typical Zlatan style. Unfortunately for him, this behavior got a very dangerous man angry. Peter Mang, a Swedish serial killer, saw Zlatan's Ferrari parked on the pavement and decided he needed to shoot the footballer for such irresponsible behavior. He quickly rushed to get his gun at home, but upon getting back, Zlatan was gone. Damn, what could have been? Maybe Zlatan is clairvoyant. Thankfully, Mangs was arrested and sentenced to prison, but unlike Zlatan, this next player never saw this attack coming. Over 13,000 excited Danish and Finnish fans gathered at the National Stadium for a match between Denmark and Finland. But little did they know, it was about to be one of the darkest days in their lives. 43 minutes into the match, Christian Eriksen received a throw-in and immediately fell to the ground. Play continued, but when he didn't stand up, it became obvious something was wrong. Very wrong. Some Danish players, then Finland's goalkeeper, and the referee all rushed to Eriksen's rescue. Then, the team of doctors quickly rushed onto the field and brought out a defibrillator, that thing that doctors use to shock people back to life. It was at this point everyone knew how bad the situation was. Some fans began crying, and a stadium so noisy suddenly became completely silent. After one of the longest 20 minutes in football history, Eriksen was finally taken off the pitch on a stretcher with his eyes open. Phew. But, you see, not everyone is as lucky, because the next footballer was given only 2 choices: stop playing football or die. Having played and won trophies for AC Milan and PSG, and now at age 39 at Chelsea, Thiago Silva has had an amazing football career and will retire as one of the greatest defenders of his generation. But when he was just 20 years old, he caught a virus that almost cost him everything. Back then, he was struggling for form at FC Porto and had a persistent cough that just wouldn't go away. So his club decided to send him out on loan at Dynamo Moscow. It was there they discovered he had tuberculosis. He spent 6 months treating the virus without any significant improvement. So, as a last resort, the doctors gave him 2 choices: undergo surgery on his lungs, which would end his football career, or die. Because of his love for football, Silva chose the other option, and then got a TB specialist. Little by little, he got better, and after 1 year without playing football, he got back on the pitch. But still, getting threatened by your doctors is not as scary as the cartel putting a target on your back. Over the past 15 years, Angel Di Maria has been one of Argentina's most skillful and consistent players. A native of Rosario, just like Lionel Messi, he directly contributed to the Copa America and World Cup wins of the Argentina national team. At 36 now, and after having such a great career, he's considered a hero in his country. Or is he? Recently, Di Maria announced his intention to see out his career playing for his hometown club, Rosario Central. But instead of excitement and jubilation, a car dropped this message at his family residence in Rosario. Tell your son Angel not to come back to Rosario, because we will kill a family member. Not even Puyaro is going to save you. We don't leave paper notes. We leave bullets and dead people behind. Damn, what did he do to get the bad guys this upset? But just like Di Maria, you're warned not to leave this video, because still to come in our top 3 picks is a footballer who drove against traffic and crashed, and an accident that almost killed a footballer when he was 4 months old. But before then, let's look at this group of players who died and came back to life, starting with this guy. Fabrice Muamba wasn't exactly a superstar footballer. He didn't have the skills and charisma to impress fans, but he was good enough to play at Arsenal, Birmingham City, and Bolton Wanderers. And it was at Bolton that an unfortunate event cost him everything. During the FA Cup match between Bolton and Tottenham, Muamba suddenly collapsed on the pitch. At first, other players didn't understand how bad the situation was, but as continued struggling, it became obvious he needed help. For 6 minutes, medics tried to get him breathing again. They performed CPR and used the defibrillator to keep him alive. A once noisy stadium became completely quiet.
Say this looks increasingly serious. Now the name of the player is being chanted.
But as he was being taken off the field, both sets of fans chanted his name. The match was abandoned, and it was later confirmed he had suffered a cardiac arrest. After an intense battle, Muamba miraculously survived sudden death, but was forced to retire at the young age of 24.
Within about a couple of seconds, I looked at you, then bang. That was the last time I was able to play football again.
Just like this guy, whose case was so bad, he couldn't even announce his retirement. Abdelak Nouri was one of the brightest prospects in the Ajax team, and with the club famed for producing stars, it was obvious Nouri was headed straight for the top. But then, something tragic happened that took everything away from him. During a friendly match between Ajax and Werder Bremen, Nouri collapsed on the pitch and was rushed to the hospital. The doctors confirmed he suffered a cardiac attack and went into a coma at just 20 years old. Hours turned into days, days into months, and months into years. He remained in a coma for 2 years, 8 months, and 19 days. When he woke up, it was confirmed he suffered severe brain damage and couldn't communicate properly. Bringing his promising football career to a sad end. But for this next footballer, his near-death experience came at the end of his career. Iker Casillas is one of the most decorated goalkeepers to ever play the game. A Real Madrid and Spain national team legend, he won the La Liga, Champions League, World Cup, and Euros, and is considered by many to be the greatest goalkeeper of all time. After such an amazing career, Casillas decided to see out his remaining days as a goalkeeper playing for FC Porto. But it was at the Portuguese team that something shocking happened. News came in that the legendary goalkeeper had collapsed during training and had been rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery. It was later confirmed he'd suffered a heart attack but was in stable condition. That was a close call. Surely these heart attacks have to stop. But does it? Tom Lockyer was living the dream, having guided Luton Town back to the Premier League as captain. What was supposed to be a fairy tale season turned into a nightmare. During the match between Bournemouth and Luton, Tom Lockyer collapsed on the pitch from an apparent heart attack. Thankfully, the medics quickly rushed and stabilized him. But what's even more crazy is that he had a similar heart attack just 7 months before that episode. After recovering, this is what he said.
But But for me, I was just living it, and almost feel that everyone watching it, and especially my family, have almost had it worse than I have.
Your heart stopped.
Yeah, so after what happened in May, I have a little recording device under the chest, and 2 minutes 40 I was out for, and I needed to have the defib to shock me back. And
wow. He was literally dead for 2 minutes and 40 seconds. He should just retire at this point. But you see, all these players nearly died on the pitch, unlike this next footballer whose life got saved off it. Lilian Thuram was a powerful and versatile defender in his prime. He was part of the France World Cup winning squad in 1998 and notably played for Parma, Juventus, and Barcelona. Aged 36, Thuram wanted to leave Barcelona and return to his native France. Fortunately, Paris Saint-Germain came calling. While conducting medical tests, a crucial piece of information was discovered that ultimately saved his life. Months before this transfer, Thuram's brother collapsed at a basketball court and died of a cardiac arrest. So, while carrying out tests on Thuram, the doctors discovered he had the same condition that killed his brother, and had he continued playing football, he would have died. Damn, 2 brothers dying from the same condition would have been crazy. But Thuram immediately retired from active football. Unlike him, leaving this video right now wouldn't be a wise move, because still to come in our top 3 picks is a player that a Ferrari almost and an almost fatal traffic offense. But before then, let me clear the air on something. Most of you feel celebrities have an army protecting them 24/7, or they aren't exposed to the same risks everyone faces daily. Well, you're wrong, because for this next group of players, death came too close to home. Starting with this footballer. After a toxic breakup with Arsenal, Aubameyang finally secured a dream move to Barcelona. All was finally well with the world, but his joy was soon turned into darkness. On the 29th of August 2022, news broke out that Aubameyang was the victim of a violent robbery at his Barcelona home. The robbers asked Aubameyang and his wife to lie down in front of their terrified kids. They hit him in the face with an iron bar, and his wife suffered a blow to the head. Luckily, no one was, as the robbers stole all their jewelry. But unlike Aubameyang, who had no one to protect him, this next footballer's life was saved by his bodyguard, teammate. While playing at Arsenal, Mesut Ozil wasn't on the big side. He looked very slender and was often described as lazy. Maybe that's why some guys decided that Ozil could be easily robbed and came for him. What happened next shocked everyone, including the robbers. They probably didn't expect Kolasinac to be there, but my goodness, look at him fight like a pro boxer. No wonder they call him the Bosnian Hulk. But unlike Ozil, this next footballer didn't have any superhero to save him. During the COVID-19 pandemic, everyone was at home, isolating, rewatching old movies, and making challenge videos with heads full of hair. But for former Tottenham player Dele Alli, something sad happened. 2 men broke into his house where he and his partner lived, beat them both up, and held Ali at knife point. The robbers went away with thousands of dollars worth of jewelry and another terrifying ordeal. Surely these footballers should be more protected, but are they? When Donnarumma signed for French champions Paris Saint-Germain, he must have been excited. After all, he was going to play football in the city of love. But what happened in 2023 shows that some people in this city had hearts full of evil. One night, Donnarumma and his girlfriend suddenly woke up to find armed robbers in their home. The guys beat him up and tied him. His girlfriend was forced to give up everything valuable they had, while he was tied up helpless and unable to do anything. The robbers went away with over $500,000 worth of valuables. Despite the trauma, the couple had to stay in a hotel to allow police to carry out investigations. It's just so sad. If only Donnarumma was like this next player, who made sure his attackers only left with a swollen face. Upon signing for Arsenal, Brazilian defender Gabriel probably thought he was just going to learn English, party a little, and play his football. But things don't always go to plan, and soon enough, Gabriel found himself auditioning for the UFC. One evening, he and his friend went out for a drive in London. On their way back, Gabriel didn't notice they were being followed. As soon as they drove into the car park, this happened.
Footage has been revealed by the Metropolitan Police, which shows Arsenal defender Gabriel being targeted by armed attackers in August. Gabriel fought off the two men as they attempted to steal his car. The man with the baseball bat, Abdurraham Muse, was jailed for 5 years last month.
Obviously, it's not a nice thing to go through when you have family involved and they are trying to access your own house. Gabi showed a lot of character. You see the reaction that he had straight away, ready to the boy. And after that, he was fine. Obviously, he was shocked. Obviously, there are a few things that he wanted to change in his life to try to prevent those things happening. And the club gave him all the support that he was needed to try to forget about the situation, learn from it, and move on.
Look at him, fight the guy off like a pro fighter. These robbers chose the wrong footballer to mess with. But unlike this bad guy, you don't want to run off now. Because from here on, it's footballers escaping death at 200 miles an hour. Starting with one of the greatest footballers of all time. He's not a great driver though. For a guy who scored over 850 goals and tallied 250 assists, it's hard to argue that Cristiano Ronaldo is arguably the greatest footballer of all time. But before he became the global superstar he is today, something crazy happened that could have changed his future. While at Manchester United, Ronaldo had just bought a new Ferrari and decided to test its speed on his way to training. So while driving through a tunnel, disaster struck. Cristiano Ronaldo ran his Ferrari into the tunnel wall. When the images of the crash became public, it was hard to believe the driver of the car was unharmed. But Ronaldo survived the crash without a single scratch. What's even crazier is that he still went to training that day, despite what had just happened. But for this next footballer, getting out of his car became a problem. Former Tottenham player Marcus Edwards has been enjoying life in the Portuguese league. Since signing for Sporting Lisbon, he's quickly established himself as a starter in the team. Ahead of their trip to Italy for the Europa League group game against Atalanta, the players were called in for one final training session before they traveled. On his way to the stadium, something terrible happened.
एक्सीडेंट हुआ है रेंज रोवर डिफेंडर का। जब एक्सीडेंट होना हो ना तो भाई कितनी सेफ कार ले लो, एक्सीडेंट होगा और कुछ ऐसा हाल हो जाता है। हालांकि ड्राइवर और जो लोग अंदर बैठे थे वो लोग सेव है। थैंक्स फॉर वॉचिंग।
Emergency services responded to the site of an accident and discovered the Sporting CP ringer trapped in his vehicle. They found his car flipped on its side with Edwards still in it. Miraculously, he was still unharmed but visibly shaken by what had happened. There's something about players crashing on their way to training. But before you start thinking of some crazy curse, you don't want to miss this, because it's time for our top 3 picks, starting with a childhood dream gone wrong. While growing up, everyone has that one car they see and are like, I want to buy that car when I grow up. For Neymar, that dream car was a Ferrari 458 Spider. In 2015, Neymar was playing the best football of his career and decided to reward himself with something he'd always dreamed of. He splashed over 200 grand on that car and celebrated on Instagram by saying, "Thank God for giving me health. And with the fruit of my labor, I fulfill another childhood dream." But in 2016, this prized possession almost cost him everything. On his way to training, Neymar was showing off his new Ferrari and suddenly, disaster struck. Thankfully, he got out of the car uninjured and was able to play in the next game. But he wouldn't even be a footballer today. the worst had happened in this next crash. Neymar Jr. was a sensational player in his prime. With his tricks and unbelievable skills, he was just a joy to watch. But Neymar would have never been a footballer if not for a miraculous survival when he was just 4 months old. Neymar Sr., his wife Nadine, and their son, Neymar Jr., were visiting relatives. While traveling on a steep mountain, heavy rain began to fall. So heavy, you could barely see out of the car. While trying to navigate this dangerous situation, their worst fear happened. Recalling the event, Neymar's father said this: "I was with Nadine in the front, and our son was in the baby chair in the back seat. A car came towards me. I tried to swerve, but it hit us, full on my door side. My left leg landed on top of the other, dislocating my hip bone. I was desperate and said to my wife, 'I'm dying.' But my worst fear beyond the pain was the sensation that followed. Where's Junior? We couldn't find Neymar Jr. We thought the force of the impact had thrown him out of the car. I shudder every time I remember the moment. But who believes in God has faith. The people who rescued us found our son under the seat of the car." Damn, at 4 months! To think death almost robbed us of this exceptional player is scary. But even this is not as scary as our number 1 pick. Diego Maradona is without question the most controversial footballer to ever play the game. His crazy lifestyle equally matched his insane ability on the pitch, off it. But perhaps his greatest problem was his struggle with. In January 2000, Maradona traveled to Cuba for rehab, and it was there that something crazy happened. On this fateful day, it was raining heavily at night in Havana, and Maradona decided it was the best time to go for a drive. But instead of driving the right way, Maradona decided to drive against oncoming traffic. Inevitably, he had a head-on collision with a tourist bus.
Tonight, that bus earlier today that flipped over, the other car involved in the crash was towed away just about 30 minutes ago. Now, APD tells us this crash happened all because of speed racing. Now, this was what the scene looked like earlier today.
He was pinned inside the car with his legs stuck under the steering wheel until rescue workers arrived. Luckily, he and the other passenger in the car suffered minor injuries and no broken bones. But damn, what could have made him behave like this? But still, Maradona may have made a lot of terrible choices, but it's nothing compared to the 16 worst referee decisions in football history. Click the next video. You gotta see this.